Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, man. Got another great video for you guys today. As usual, man, you guys know the deal on this channel. So about setting the record straight, stopping the lies, stopping the narratives, stopping them from rewriting history, guys, right? And in this video, we're going to talk about some comments I heard from this fool, Paul Pierce. I mean, my goodness, man. Every time you turn on social media, every time you hear these ex-NBA players speak, they're lying about themselves. They're literally trying to rewrite their own careers. This is just getting weird now. I don't understand why these guys can't be humbled with their own careers and what they accomplished and how they did it. You did your careers. You played out your career the way it did. You can't go back and try to rewrite it and try to pump yourself up. And I saw some comments from Paul Pierce in his clip that I saw of him basically saying he's the greatest scorer in NBA's history. He's the greatest scorer of all time. I mean, and he was comparing himself to other guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe and LeBron James and James Harden. You know, oh, I'm a better scorer than all these guys. I'm a more well-equipped scorer. Just weird wordings, weird things that these guys say don't add up. There is no evidence. There is no factual proof that would lead you to believe that Paul Pierce is anywhere close to the greatest scorer in NBA's history. But Paul Pierce is going to say this, and we're going to talk about this video. Because this dude has literally jumped out the window. These guys are weird, man. That's the only way I can put it. Just weirdos. Tracy McGrady. Now we got Paul Pierce saying nonsense. Insane. Man, I want to thank you guys. Everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel. Once again, you guys know I am truly humbled, man. Much respect to everybody out there, the true basketball fans that continue to support my channel. Thank you very much, guys. Shout out to everybody in the membership. And you guys know what to do. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, I heard this clip of Paul Pierce, and I don't know if it was on his show or a podcast or whatever he was on. He was appearing on this program, and they started to ask Paul Pierce these questions about his scoring prowess, his ability to score the basketball, right? His overall offensive arsenal versus other, great scorers in NBA's history, or other guys that are considered great scorers, or guys who have scored a lot of points in their careers. And they compared him to several people they brought up, and like I told you, they brought up Michael Jordan. Now, I've told you guys on this channel, this is not necessarily about you guys or me trying to convince you that Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time. I don't give a damn about that. It doesn't matter if you believe that or not. My channel is about setting the record straight, guys, and giving you the truth and the facts, and you form your own opinion off that. If you believe it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Wilt Chamberlain or Larry Bird or Kobe Bryant or Magic Johnson or Bill Russell, whoever you believe is the greatest player of all time in your mind is whatever, man. I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other of Michael Jordan being the greatest of all time. What I'm trying to get you to understand is a lot of these things that the people out here saying is not factual. They're not giving you the truth. They're not giving you any historical perspective. I'm giving you perspective from someone who grew up watching this stuff. And a lot of you guys get this. So once again, like I've always told you, I have no reason to lie for Michael Jordan. I don't have to lie for Michael Jordan. I don't have to lie for his contemporaries, the guys that I grew up watching in his era. I don't have to lie about these men. There's no reason for me to do that because those guys went out there and played the game with honor, with class and integrity. So I respect them, which is why I always tell you I owe them because they showed up and they gave that effort for us. So once again, this is not about convincing you guys one way or the other. We're giving the facts here. So, Paul Pierce is talking about Michael Jordan and basically saying that he's a greater scorer than Michael Jordan. He's more well-equipped to score the ball than Michael Jordan. Paul Pierce, my man. Dude, you sound ridiculous. This is insane for these guys to come out here on national television and make these statements. Like I said, if Paul Pierce wants to believe this in the privacy of his own home and they can tell his family members and whoever wants to listen to him at home, yo, I'm the greatest scorer of all time. I could do this, and this on the basketball court. You want to have that opinion, that belief? By all means, Paul Pierce. Knock yourself out. Feel how you want to feel. But once you start putting this stuff out, like I told you, you start putting out on the mainstream media, you start putting it on a podcast, on a TV show, you start trying to spread your opinion and your private feelings out loud, and sharing them with everybody, then you must be able to support that with evidence. There must be able to be something that you can point to. I say the same thing all the time, guys. You must be able to point to something. Paul Pierce needs to be able to point to something as evidence, as proof that he's the greatest scorer of all time, or evidence and proof showing why he would feel that way. Because I don't even know how he could feel this way. Once again, Paul Pierce not being humble, showing no humility, no class, no honor in this, saying this kinds of stuff. I don't get why these guys can't be humble with their careers. Paul Pierce accomplished what he accomplished. It wasn't good enough apparently for Paul Pierce because, let's be honest, part of this is Paul Pierce not feeling like he's not recognized as one of the great players of the 2000s. And I hate to break it to you, my man Paul Pierce. And I want to say something else real quick. Shout out to my man 2 Raw. I listened to his video this morning on this topic because I didn't know he did a video on this. And like I said, I heard these comments on social media this morning. And then I saw that 2 Raw did a video. And I listened to his video this morning. And I told you, a lot of times I won't listen to videos if I'm going to do a video on the same topic. A lot of times I won't do that because I want to have my own thought and opinion on the video. I don't want to be clouded with other people's ideas or, their perspective or the view that they took. And I got to say, man, 2 Raw, he was being too kind to Paul Pierce. He spoke very eloquently of Paul Pierce and his scoring ability, and the impact that he had and that he didn't really have much help in Boston all those years. And, he talked about a lot of these things and he gave Paul Pierce a lot of credit. And I think that 2 Raw gave Paul Pierce too much credit, way too much, because this is the problem I have with someone like Paul Pierce and the way and the things that he said. Like I mentioned with Tracy McGrady, I'm going to give the same advice out, PSA, to anyone out there, man. Whenever someone asks you about your basketball career or your playing career, whatever the sport is or anything like that, someone asks you about yourself, even if it's not even a sport, if it's just someone asking you about your professional career, your job, whatever you did outside, and you were successful to a degree in it, you were at the highest level of that profession, right? The NBA is the highest level of basketball. So these guys just making it there should be a great accomplishment for them in their minds. But for someone like Paul Pierce, someone like Tracy McGrady, it wasn't good enough that they were regarded as great players. Paul Pierce, a Hall of Famer. It's not good enough for him. He needs to be recognized as the top 5 guys in the 2000s, and he's never going to be on that level, guys. And that's a big problem for Paul Pierce. So he's not humbled by this. But like I said, what these guys should do is, in this instance, if they were going to play this game coming off the heels of the comments made by LeBron James and Kevin Durant on Mind the Game, when they talked about Kevin Durant, LeBron James called Kevin Durant the most equipped scorer in NBA's history. Once again, nonsense. I'm not buying Kevin Durant as a great scorer of all time. To me, he's not that dude. Mentally, he's not that guy. So I'm not putting Kevin Durant in a top 3, top 5 scorers in NBA's history because mentally he's weak. Mentally, he don't have it to go after it and be relentless like that when it matters most and just keep coming at you. Kevin Durant, to me, he protects his field goal percentage by taking calculated shots. Like I said, taking shots that he's comfortable taking, never stepping outside of his comfort zone, never being that guy that's got to just go out there and just chuck up shots, to put up shots, to lead his team. He's never ever been that guy. He's never been that dude. So Paul Pierce should just have came out and be like, listen, there's been some great scores in NBA's history. I feel like I was a great scorer. I feel like I was a very well-rounded scorer when I played the game. I didn't rely on one aspect of the game, right? I didn't just rely on layups and dunks, athleticism. I didn't rely just on three-point chucking or three-point shooting. I didn't just rely on a mid-range game. I had a overall balanced game. That's all Paul Pierce has to say. He's like, I would compare, and you can even say something like, I would put myself, on the level of some of the top, 10 scores in NBA's history or something like that. To me, even that's outlandish. But saying something like that is more humble. So what that would do is force people like 2 Raw, force people like me and others to big up Paul Pierce and celebrate him. Like I said with Tracy McGrady. People, if Tracy McGrady wouldn't be like, hey, man, we're getting a little carried away here with the Kobe Bryant stuff. I'm not on Kobe Bryant's level. That's all Tracy McGrady would have to say. And that would have forced everyone around him to celebrate him and say, hey, don't shortchange yourself, Tracy McGrady. You were a great player, too, in your own right. But instead, he jumped out the window and started to basically try to disrespect Kobe by trying to lift himself up into a realm that he wasn't at. Doesn't make any sense. So you look ridiculous. And then it forces people like me, the true basketball fans, to come out here and set the record straight on you clowns. Same thing with Paul Pierce. He can't be humbled with his career, what he accomplished, how he did it. He can't be humbled with this stuff. He has to try to embellish his career, pump it up, inflate it to a level that it's not at. And that forces someone like me to come out here and set the record straight on Paul Pierce. Now, I wrote down some stuff here to make sure that I was accurate for the historical record. I told you this, right? Now, Paul Pierce claims he's the greatest scorer of all time, greater than Michael Jordan. Guys, we don't have to get into the other players, but he thinks he's the greatest scorer of all time. He actually said he's more well-rounded scorer than Michael Jordan. How is that possible, Paul Pierce? See, you have to be able to explain it or help us understand what you're saying. Does anyone believe, just between Michael Jordan and Paul Pierce, that Paul Pierce is the more well-rounded, more well-equipped scorer? Does anyone think that at all? I don't believe so. And the way that Paul Pierce was talking on this show, in the clip that I saw, once again, the arrogance, the hubris, like the lack of humility from these guys. It's almost like, yeah, Jordan, I was more well-equipped than Jordan. I could do this. He said, I can shoot the three. I can do the mid-range. I can go inside. Like, I can post up. Dude, none of those things that you said you did better than Michael Jordan. If I needed a shot from three-point range, I'm not picking Paul Pierce over Michael Jordan to take that shot. Come on, man. And I believe Paul Pierce won a three-point contest. Great for Paul Pierce. It's a three-point contest. Did Paul Pierce set an NBA record for most threes in the first half of the finals? I don't believe he did. And like I said, if I need a shot at the end of a game, and I'm not saying that Paul Pierce is not a good player or a great player or been a clutch, that's his claim to fame. Paul Pierce is a clutch time performer. No doubt about it. Is he more clutch than Michael Jordan? Like I said, do you want him taking a shot at the end of the game over Michael Jordan? Do you guys really believe that he's a more well-rounded, more well-equipped scorer than Michael Jordan? Like I said, help me see what you're seeing, Paul Pierce. Help me understand what you're trying to say. Is there anything you can point to? Can we point to Paul Pierce's points per game for his career? That's impressive that you're like, damn, Paul Pierce points per game. You guys know what Paul Pierce points per game is ranked all time? All time, guys. Paul Pierce is ranked 83. 83rd all time in points per game. All right, guys? 83rd. So that means there are 82 players in NBA's history that average more points per game than Paul Pierce. Once again, I'm not saying it's the the A-all, B-all of scoring, but damn it, you're 83rd in points per game, dude? Come on, man. His career average is 19 points per game. So you don't even average 20 points a game for your career. And people can say whatever they want about the last several years he was in the NBA. That's on Paul Pierce. No one told him to go to the Brooklyn Nets, then go to the LA Clippers, and then go to the Washington Wizards. Who told him to do this nonsense? These guys out there just collecting checks. What are they doing? You're not doing anything. So like I said, this is part of your career, Paul Pierce. So your points per game for your career is 19. That's not impressive. You're 83rd all time on the list of points per game. Does that sound like a most well-rounded, most well-equipped scorer to you? Well, let's dig into his career anymore because I'm shortchanging Paul Pierce. I'm not giving him enough credit. Because I'm telling you right now, Too Raw, you gave him too much credit. You gave him too much props for the way that man spoke, the way that he, like the look on his face. Like I said, the arrogance, the disgust of Paul Pierce actually being compared to Michael Jordan. I mean, and then when they got to Tracy McGrady, it was a long list of guys they went through, guys. Like I said, they went to like LeBron James, James Harden, Kobe, somebody else they had on there. Score, like I said, they obviously had Michael Jordan on there. But they had Tracy McGrady. Was, I believe, the last player that they mentioned, right? There was maybe like 7 or 8 guys. Tracy McGrady was the last name I believe they brought up. And you realize that Paul Pierce sat back and was like, oh, this is a tough one. Tracy McGrady, man. So you're telling me that when they said Michael Jordan first, that wasn't a tough one for you? He just came out, yeah, Michael Jordan. I'm more well-equipped than Michael Jordan score. Guys, this is getting embarrassing. It's getting embarrassing because, like I said, does anyone believe that Paul Pierce is anywhere close to being a top 5 or top 10 scorer in NBA's history? He's not even close to that, guys. Not even close. And Paul Pierce had a good game. No one's saying that he couldn't score or didn't have a well-rounded overall offensive game. But damn it, Paul Pierce, you ain't nowhere near the level of the dudes like this. I believe they even mentioned Kevin Durant. He believes he's a better scorer than Kevin Durant. So I got some numbers here to highlight and basically show and expose that what Paul Pierce is saying is actually quite the contrary to what Paul Pierce is saying. So Paul Pierce believes he's the greatest scorer of all time, the most well-equipped scorer, whatever that means. Like I said, these guys come up with these weird wordings to try to, finagle it. Oh, I said I was the most well-equipped scorer of all time. I didn't say I was the greatest scorer of all time. I'm the most well-equipped. I can score at all these different levels. I'm a 3-level scorer. These guys, it cracked me up with this crap, man. Yeah, you're a 3-level scorer in one of the weakest eras in NBA's history, Paul Pierce. You know what I'm saying? With Kevin Durant, he's the greatest scorer of all time. You told me the greatest scorer of all time played in the weakest era of all time? What are we doing here? Doesn't make any sense, right? Should the great scorers have to actually be playing in some defense? You would think that would make them greater, wouldn't it? You would be more impressed with Kevin Durant having to actually go through some actual defense, right? But that's not the case for Paul Pierce or Kevin Durant. But Paul Pierce, how many times has Paul Pierce? Because see, the thing about it is, scoring, we have to think about it in a couple of different ways here, right? There's potency, how potent you are of a score, or how consistent you are of a score, right? So, for example, LeBron James was a consistent scorer, not a potent scorer, which is why he is the all-time points leader, right? He's been consistently averaging 25 to 27 points a game. That's consistent, but that's not potency, all right? That's why he's only led the league in scoring one time, even though he's shooting all these shots. You only led the league in scoring once because you're not a potent, overall, well-rounded scorer, LeBron James. He doesn't have that overall offensive game. So guys like Tracy McGrady were more potent. Guys like Kobe Bryant were more potent scorers. They can lead the league in scoring multiple times. I mean, hell, look at even Russell Westbrook and how many times he led the league in scoring versus LeBron James. How did Russell Westbrook lead the league in scoring twice? LeBron James led the league in scoring one time, and they played in the same era. The same era, guys. There's not different eras. It's the same era. James Harden was more potent than LeBron James, scoring the basketball, which is why he led the league in scoring more times than LeBron James, right? Tracy McGrady, these guys that we talked about, they were just more potent, right? So Paul Pierce is not as potent as an offensive scorer to me as the guys that they were mentioning. Some of the guys that they mentioned, he's not as potent. Like even to me, Kevin Durant's not as potent, right, as he should be because it's mental. He's not mentally as relentless as the all-time great scorers, guys who score. Like I told you, like Allen Iverson, the relentlessness of Allen Iverson. It allowed him to score and be potent because, that was another guy that Paul Pierce said he was better than scoring ball was Allen Iverson. So you're telling me, Paul Pierce, you're a greater scorer than Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady. You're a greater scorer than all these guys. All those guys I mentioned led the league in scoring multiple times. How many times did Paul Pierce lead the league in scoring, guys? How many times? Maybe once, maybe twice? Never. And listen, I'm not going to take away from Paul Pierce. He can score the basketball. But there are levels, man. Levels. And you're not on that top tier level. I don't think anyone's going to argue that Paul Pierce is a top 5, top 10 scorer in NBA's history. Those are the elite guys. Is he a greater, more potent scorer than George Gervin? I mean, is he a greater scorer than Wilt Chamberlain? Is he a greater scorer than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? Is he more potent than those guys? I mean, my goodness here. You look at Paul Pierce's resume, you look at his career, and it actually exposes the opposite. See, these guys, they try to rewrite their history, which forces us to look into their careers even further, which exposes them as liars and hypocrites. Right? Like I said, you're contradicting yourselves. You're not one of them dudes. How many 50-point games has Paul Pierce had in his career, guys? Because that's the sign of a potent scorer. Someone that can score potently is your career high, right? In a game, how many points have you scored in the actual game, right? The potent scorers, they'll put some points up in the game, right? Michael Jordan scored 69. He had several games in the 60s. A lot of 50-point games, a lot of 40-point games from Michael Jordan. He's a potent offensive scorer. He can do that. Kobe Bryant, 81 points in a game, 60 points in a game several times. Many 50-point games, 40-point games. Wilt Chamberlain, how many 50-point, and they men average 50 for a season. Scored 100 in a game, scored 60 in a game, 50s in the game. I mean, these are potent scorers, right? Pistol Pete Maravich, Iceman George Gervin. These guys are putting up 60, 50-point games regularly. Right? They put it up multiple times. All right? This is what the great scorers do. The Bob Pettits, the Jerry Wests, the Oscar Robertsons, these guys that were potent offensively, Elgin Baylor, these guys who could drop these games like that at any time on you. And like I said, a lot of those guys I mentioned played under much tougher conditions, under tougher standards than Paul Pierce ever did. And I'm not knocking the era that Paul Pierce played in anything like that, because he played in the 2000s, and we all respect the 2000s. But my goodness, man, what are we talking about here? All right? The era that you played in, you were not one of those guys offensively scoring the ball. You weren't one of them dudes. You just weren't. You guys realize that Paul Pierce has one 50-point game into his name in his career. You guys realize that? And see, the thing about this, like I mentioned, is that I didn't even realize that because I was not a Paul Pierce fan like that. I know his game. I remember watching him, but I didn't know his career like this. So you make up these stories, these scenarios. You put yourself in a realm that you don't belong in. You think you're one of the great scorers of all time, which you're not. And then I look into your career, and you average 19 points a game for your career. His career high average for a season was 26.8, which is really good. 26.8 points a game. And like I said, I'm not trying to shortchange Paul Pierce. He led the league in total points, I believe, in 2002. I'm going to say in 2002, he led the NBA in total points. But that was a season where Allen Iverson led the league in scoring per game. Because remember, there were no minimums at the time. And I believe Allen Iverson played 60 games that season and got the scoring title. But the second place runner-up was Shaquille O'Neal, who averaged, I believe, 27-point-something points per game that season. And I believe he played, I want to say 78 games or 75 games or whatever it was. So he would have been the next person to receive. But that season, Paul Pierce led the NBA in total points, right? I believe he played, I think, every game that season. And like I said, he averaged, I want to say in 2002, averaged like 26.1 points per game. But Paul Pierce has more seasons averaging under 20 than he does averaging above 20. All right, guys? He has more seasons averaging under 20 than he does averaging above 25. But Paul Pierce tries to put his name in the same conversation, the same category as those guys. It doesn't add up. You have one 50-point game in your career. One 50-point game, guys. I had to double check this. I thought that was off. There's no way this is possible. One 50-point game in Paul Pierce's career? It's laughable, guys. That's what it is, laughable. And that was, I believe, in 2006. Laughable. One 50-point game, but you're the most well-equipped, greatest scorer of all time? How many 40-point games does Paul Pierce have in his career? He probably has a lot of 40-point games, right? Because he's the greatest scorer of all time. 21 40-point games in his career, which is not bad, but that's not good. That's not, elite. That's not all-time great. That's not you, the greatest scorer of all time. 21 40-point games in your career? Paul Pierce played a long time, man. So essentially, it's like one 40-point game a season. That's not impressive, Paul Pierce. Not at all, man. Like I said, especially when you played in the Celtics team for a lot of years where you were the main guy. You were the main dude, and you only cracked 50 points once. So you're that well-equipped that Giannis Antetokounmpo has a higher career high than you? 50 is his career high, guys. 50. Not 58, not 57. 50. 50. Barely cracked 50. Once. 21 40-point games. And I'm going to give you guys some perspective because that's what I do for you guys on the channel versus Michael Jordan because he wanted to try to put his name above Michael Jordan as a scorer, more well-equipped. Do you guys realize that in the 1987 season when Michael Jordan averaged 37 points a game that year, led the Bulls to the playoffs, right, coming off the foot injury the year before. When Michael Jordan, that season, guys, he had 37 games of 40 or more. So what does that show you? That just in one season, 1987, guys, Michael Jordan had more 40-point games than Paul Pierce had in his career. He had that in one season. I mean, it was essentially his second year in the league because he missed his second year. The man had more 40-point games in one season than Paul Pierce had in his entire career. But Paul Pierce is going to try to say on national television that he's more well-equipped scoring the ball. He's a greater overall scorer than Michael Jordan. Not to mention that Michael Jordan was going against some of the most physical defenses in NBA's history. The New York Knicks, the Detroit Pistons, right? These are some physical defense, man. You guys are hurt you out there. The Miami Heat in the late 90s, the Indiana Pacers in the late 90s. These are physical defenses that Michael Jordan was dealing with. Not only going against physical defenses, right? Great team defense, but great individual defenders also. Guys like Michael Cooper, the Alvin Robertsons, the Sidney Moncriefs, the Joe Dumars, the Dennis Rodmans, right? The Ron Harpers. Like, these are some of the guys that Michael Jordan was going against routinely. The Gary Paytons, right? The Derek McKees. So when we think about Michael Jordan and what he was able to do, how he was able to do it, also we must mention Michael Jordan playing in the triangle system, right? So that also limited his quote-unquote numbers. So he sacrificed and was still able to be that potent that the men won 10 straight scoring titles. How many scoring titles did Paul Pierce had? Not one, guys. Not one, man. Not one. My God, I don't get. It's the same thing I'm telling you guys about some of these guys that are trying to pump their careers up on the defensive end. Oh, I was great on defense. Or this guy's great on defense. You can't use the word great. You can't be elite on the defensive end when you've never made an all-defensive team, guys. That's the facts. That's the facts. If you played after 1969, when they first came with the all-defensive teams, if you've been playing since 1969, and we can track your career since 1969, and they've been giving out all defensive teams since 1969, and you've gone an entire career, and you never made one single all defensive team, not a first or second, then you don't have the right. You lose that right to ever say that you were a great defender, or anyone to say this guy was a great defender, he was an elite defender. You can't say that. If you want to say this guy was a good defender, okay. You want to say that they gave effort, they were solid on defense, okay. But you can't say great or elite. You can't use those words when you're never in a single team. Not a single one. So, in this example for Paul Pierce, you cannot claim that you're one of the greatest scorers in NBA's history when you've never led the league in scoring at least one time, but also your career point per game is number 83. That's insane. You're not number 21. You're not number 19. You're not number 32. You're number 83. 83. And go look at some of the names of the players that are ahead of Paul Pierce on the points per game all-time list. You forgot about these guys. They're not viewed as scorers, as the most elite, well-rounded, most well-equipped scorers. Those are guys that can score. They had a little bit of a game, right? They can put the ball in the hole. But they're not the best of the best of the best. They're not. Paul Pierce doesn't make any sense. For example, Jerry West, he didn't lead the league in scoring like that because of guys like Will Chamberlain, right? But if you look at Jerry West's career scoring point per game, he's in the top 10. So it's obvious that he's an elite scorer. You look at how many times he averaged over 27 points a game, right? You look how many times, like I said, the amount of points he was scoring during these seasons, you could tell that Jerry West was a potent offensive threat. The dude was one of the elite scorers in the history of the game. Well more equipped and much more potent than Paul Pierce. Elgin Baylor, give me him over Paul Pierce. And as a knock on Paul Pierce, think about the guys I'm mentioning. These are some of the elite scorers. Those are the guys. I'd rather have Larry Bird scoring the ball than Paul Pierce. And that's not a knock on Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is a clutch time performer. I give him credit for that and props and respect. But for you to come out here and talk this way when I'm looking at your resume and you ain't like that, dude. You are not like that. 150-point game in your career. 21 for your career, 40-point games. Michael Jordan had more than that one season. One season. You know Paul Pierce never made an All-NBA first team, guys? Never made an All-NBA first team. I didn't even realize that either. He made 4 All-NBA selections in his career, guys. 4. That's not a lot. It's not impressive. This ain't knocking on Paul Pierce. He's a Hall of Famer, legit Hall of Famer. But 4 All-NBA selections, never made an All-NBA first team, so you were never the best player at your position in the league you played in. You never were. You were never one of the best forwards. You just weren't. His best finish was second all-team. All right, guys, I believe that was 09. I want to say the 09 season. That was his best finish. Second team All-NBA. 4 times his career. I believe he's a 10-time All-Star. 4 times All-NBA. It's not impressive. See what I'm saying? Like, when you look into the guys' careers, you're like, what is this dude talking about? You should just shut up and be humbled. You should be happy you're in the Hall of Fame. You're a Finals MVP winner, Paul Pierce. You're an NBA champion. And you come out here and you talk reckless like this. It doesn't make any sense. Don't ever compare yourself to Michael Jordan. You're not on the level of the top 5, 10, 20 scores in NBA's history. I do not believe Paul Pierce is anywhere near that list. Like I said, I mentioned a lot of guys in this video that I would put above Paul Pierce scoring the ball, and I'm not even thinking about this. See, and this is the same thing. Like, you're telling me Paul Pierce don't know these guys? You don't know the history of the game, Paul Pierce, right? You've exposed yourself. You're not being honest. You're not educating anybody. So you're just putting yourself out there. And so now people are going to look into your career, and they're going to be like, you're telling me a guy who averages 19 points a game for his career is a great scorer in NBA's history? Like, think about a young kid that hears Paul Pierce say this, or someone who doesn't really know any better, and then they go to what everyone else does now. They Google something, or they go to Basketball Reference. Who's this guy, Paul Pierce? What are you talking about? He's a great scorer of all time, really? And you look at his resume's got nothing on it. He ain't never leagued in the damn thing, right? He ain't never been that dude like that. I mean, my goodness. And some of the guys that I mentioned that he compared himself to and said he was greater than, those were two-way players. Paul Pierce ain't no one mistaking Paul Pierce as a two-way player. And I'm not saying that he didn't give effort on defense or hustle, but he never made an all-defensive team. He was never that dude. So you really only had to focus on your scoring because that's all you did at a high level. He wasn't a hellified rebounder. He wasn't a playmaker like that. And you couldn't even average 30 points a game in a season. Let's say never once averaged 30 in a season. Never once. Where's your potent offensive scoring at? Other guys were doing it. Allen Iverson was doing it. Tracy McGrady was doing it. Kobe was doing it. Shaq was doing it. Like, all these other guys who put these crazy numbers, leading the league in scoring, but not the guy who claims he's a great scorer in all time. You compared yourself to Michael Jordan, and like I said, you blew it off like it was nothing. But then when you're Tracy McGrady, you're like, oh, that's a tough one. So Tracy McGrady was a tough one for you to figure out. So once again, is Tracy McGrady a greater scorer than Michael Jordan? No, he's not. Michael Jordan is, guys, is the greatest scorer of all time. He is. It's just the facts. Those are the facts. There's evidence there. Everything points to Michael Jordan. The points per game, the scoring titles, the averages, the moments scoring when he needed it. A lot of these big-time guys that claim that they were these great scorers, like Kevin Durant, where were they in the big-time moments? Right? There's been times where these guys were not there. Where was Kevin Durant in 2016 West Conference Finals? Scoring the ball. Where was he against the Boston Celtics that year? What was that, 2022 or whatever it was? In the playoffs when the man was averaging 6 turnovers a game. Where was he then? I don't understand these guys. They're the great scorers of all time, but there's been many instances where they were not there. You can't claim to be the greatest at something, but then have many times in your career when you vanished. You just weren't there. Michael Jordan was always there putting up points, always there being potent. And he was a two-way player. Not Kevin Durant, not Paul Pierce, man. Not a lot of these guys that claim to fame these days as scorers. Guy's career high is 50. He has one 50-point game in his career, 21 40-point games in his career, and he's trying to say that he's a greater scorer than Michael Jordan, more well-equipped and score than Michael Jordan. He can't finish like Michael Jordan around the rim, above or below. He don't shoot the mid-range like Michael Jordan. And then when you talk about three-point shooting, once again, give me Michael Jordan three-point shooting over Paul Pierce, man. I don't give a damn what he says. I don't care what the percentages say. Give me Michael Jordan. And in the clutch, give me Michael Jordan. Paul Pierce, clutch player. But I'm not putting him over Michael Jordan in the clutch, over a lot of those guys. Like I said, give me Larry Bird over Paul Pierce, shooting and scoring the basketball, man. A lot of guys. And I don't knock on Paul Pierce, but you ain't that dude, man. Like I said, you're 83rd all time on the list, man. That's insane to me, man. He was never top 5 in MVP voting Paul Pierce. He wasn't that guy. You're rewriting your history, man. And I don't respect it. So like I said, man, much respect to my man Too Raw doing his video, but you spoke too kindly and you gave Paul Pierce too much respect, man. Like I said, we don't have to celebrate these guys because they're forcing us to not celebrate them because they're celebrating themselves. We don't have to celebrate them because they celebrate themselves, apparently. Whereas back in the day, the fans celebrated you guys. We celebrate the players. Now these guys celebrate themselves. They don't want us saying anything. They're going to celebrate themselves, but when they do it, it doesn't add up. They do it at the expense of other all-time greats. Paul Pierce celebrated himself at the expense of other great scorers that are actually greater than him. Remember, Paul Pierce, the same guy that came out some years back and tried to say that his career was greater than Dwayne Wade's. It's just weird to me where Paul Pierce thinks he is. Because ultimately, the problem for Paul Pierce is he was never viewed as a top 5 player of the 2000s. And I think that bothers him a lot. Like, no one puts him in the class of Jason Kidd, of Allen Iverson, of Shaquille O'Neal, of Kevin Garnett, of Tim Duncan, of Kobe Bryant, right? Like, no one puts him up there with those guys, like a Steve Nash. Like, to me, these are probably the greatest, I don't know, that's 6, 7 guys that is named off right there. But to me, those are probably the greatest, 5, 6, 7 players in the NBA when we think about the 2000s time period. To me, those are the guys. Paul Pierce is not on that level with them. He's, one of the, you could say, argue a top 10, top 15 player of the 2000s. But to me, he's not a top 5 guy. He's nowhere close to those guys. To me, Jason Kidd, like I said, Kobe, Shaq, Duncan, Allen Iverson, Garnett, like, to me, those guys are in another level, man. In my opinion, they're on another level. You know what I'm saying? And I think that Paul Pierce really wants to be mentioned, with those guys. Oftentimes those are the players brought up in these conversations of the top players of the 2000s. Paul Pierce's name doesn't get brought up. And I'm not saying that that's, disrespectful to him or he's underappreciated. And even if he was, you killed yourself by doing this. Because now I just exposed your career, dude. You're nowhere like that. You guys know the deal. I'll catch you guys on the next one.